Being ignored doesn't hurt because you're weak. It hurts because you've lost control of the frame. You start replaying everything. What did I do wrong? Why are they so cold? Do they even care? But here's the brutal truth. Ignoring is not silence. It's a psychological tactic used in politics, romance, war, and the moment you react, you lose. Machiavelli once warned, "A man who relies on the goodwill of others is doomed to fall. If they can manipulate your attention, they control your identity. But what if you flipped it? What if your detachment triggered their obsession? This isn't revenge. This is power, cloaked in stillness." In this video, we'll unpack the dark science behind attention, obsession, and emotional leverage. And we'll show you how to reclaim control without saying a single word. Watch to the end, or risk being the puppet forever. 1. Ignoring is a weapon of control. When someone ignores you, it's rarely accidental. It's a psychological maneuver, a quiet, cold chess move meant to provoke a reaction. To Machiavelli, attention isn't freely given, it's currency. And when someone withholds theirs, it's not neutrality, it's domination through absence. You begin to second-guess yourself. Did I say something wrong? Do they care less now? That's the trap. They've created a void, and now they're watching to see what you'll do to fill it. This is not silence. This is strategy. And the moment you chase, explain, or beg for acknowledgement, you've already lost the game. This tactic is ancient. To ignore someone is to assert control without lifting a finger. It leaves no fingerprints, but it wounds all the same. It triggers your deepest evolutionary fear, being excluded from the tribe. And yet most people walk right into it. They scramble to earn back what was strategically withheld. But as Lao Tzu once said, "He who controls others may be powerful, but he who has mastered himself is mightier still." Your tormentor may think they've taken power by ignoring you, but the real weapon is not theirs. It's yours, if you understand this truth. You are not being rejected. You are being baited. Silence can be louder than rage. It doesn't scream, it haunts. It echoes in your head because it offers nothing to fight against. But that silence is where your power incubates. If you can withstand the storm of not being seen, not being validated, and still not fold, you become dangerous. Why? Because people are terrified of those who don't need attention to maintain their value. They can't use what doesn't work on you. They pull back, and you don't follow. Now they're the ones off balance. What they used as control becomes their exposure. Their silence is now a mirror reflecting their own insecurity. The moment you stop trying to earn their recognition, you've already flipped the script. You've made it clear. I'm not here to be chosen. I choose. You don't fight for scraps of approval. You become the source. And this terrifies manipulators, because their only real tactic was your need for their eyes. Starve their power of oxygen. Be unbothered. Turn away with calm precision. You are not cold. You are free. You are not reacting. You are reclaiming. And once they realize their silence no longer stings, their power begins to decay. But what happens when you don't flinch? When you turn your back instead? The predator becomes the prey. And silence? It's no longer a weapon. It's your shield. 2. Reverse chasing. Make absence attractive. Most people chase what pulls away. It's instinctual. The fear of losing something triggers urgency, and that urgency becomes obedience. But the moment you start chasing, you've already positioned yourself beneath them. Machiavelli understood this inversion. Control isn't found in pursuit. It's found in absence. You don't win power by explaining your worth. You win it by making your absence felt. Every time you justify yourself, every time you ask, "Did I do something wrong?" You dilute your gravity. You become accessible, predictable. And in power dynamics, predictability is weakness. The more available you are, the less your presence is worth. Scarcity creates value, and silence creates allure. This is the art of reverse chasing. Instead of moving forward, you vanish, not out of spite, but out of knowing. People want what they can't fully grasp. The mystery becomes magnetic. You must become the unanswered question in their mind, the person who didn't explain, didn't plead, didn't need to be understood. When you stop showing up, not with resentment, but with poise, the silence echoes. It becomes a mirror that forces them to confront the loss of your presence. Machiavelli wrote, "The one who makes himself feared is safer than the one who makes himself loved." But fear, in this context, doesn't mean hostility. It means awe, a kind of psychological intimidation born from unpredictability and self-sufficiency. When you're not easily read, you're not easily controlled. When they can't predict how you'll respond, they become cautious. Your withdrawal makes them question their own worth, not yours. And suddenly, the balance of power begins to shift. The rose isn't chased because it moves. It's chased because it doesn't. It stays rooted in its nature, unbothered by footsteps around it. Its stillness is its allure. You must embody that stillness, not to manipulate, but to signal value. Power doesn't announce itself. It whispers. And when you stop performing, stop chasing, and allow others to feel the cost of losing your energy, you become unforgettable. Not for what you gave, but for what you took away. But here's the tightrope. How do you use this without becoming manipulative? How do you remain powerful without turning cold? That's where the true art lies, in detachment without cruelty, in silence without spite. When your absence is rooted in inner strength rather than emotional games, you become a force no one can ignore. And now, the game is no longer about who wants who. It's about who needs who less. 3. Emotional supply chains. Starve the addiction. Every emotional interaction is part of an invisible supply chain. The moment someone ignores you, they're not disengaging. They're reaching for control through absence. Why? Because they expect you to respond. They're not just looking for your voice. They're addicted to your emotional energy. Anger, confusion, sadness. It's all food. And if you react, you feed the very mechanism that keeps you beneath them. That's the secret Machiavelli would see immediately. Power isn't in the confrontation. It's in the refusal to fuel the addiction. You don't cut the chain with confrontation. You break it with starvation. Every scream, every anxious message, every mental spiral, it's a deposit into their emotional bank account. Most people think their pain is private. It isn't. The person ignoring you feels your reaction. They know the silence has you unraveling, and it feeds their quiet dominance. But here's the uncomfortable truth. The more you emotionally invest in being seen, the more control you hand over. Carl Jung once paraphrased this perfectly. You are not possessed, you are just feeding a pattern. You're not weak, you're just playing a role they depend on. Stop feeding it, and the dynamic begins to rot. They want a scream. Give them silence. They want chaos. Give them calm. They want your confusion. Give them indifference. And when you withdraw not just your attention, but your emotional signature, something eerie happens. The high they once felt from your suffering disappears. The predator no longer gets the thrill. What was once a game becomes a void, and the void turns inward on them. You don't need to attack. Your absence creates erosion. But to make this stick, your silence must be more than stillness. It must plant a doubt. People fear the unknown more than they fear rage. If you vanish with quiet acceptance, with an unshaken core, it forces one terrifying question in their mind. Did I ever have power over them at all? That seed is more potent than revenge. It lingers, it festers, because now they don't just miss your presence, they begin to question their own influence. You become an enigma, and enigma holds more power than explanation ever could. Emotional starvation isn't cruelty, it's clarity. You're not punishing, you're detaching. You're reminding them that you are not a faucet of endless attention. You're not a drug. You're the cure to their illusion of control. But silence alone isn't enough unless you leave behind the one thing they can't stop chasing: uncertainty. That's the trigger that flips the entire game. And when it lands, they won't just feel your absence. They'll need your return. 4. Install uncertainty, the obsession switch. Certainty is a psychological sedative. It dulls curiosity, neutralizes tension, and kills attraction. When someone knows exactly where they stand with you, when your intentions are obvious, your emotions predictable, your presence guaranteed, you become safe. And in the game of power, safety is the death of influence. Machiavelli understood this, even if he didn't speak it directly. Power must provoke unease. To control attention, you must weaponize ambiguity. When they don't know how you feel, when your silence isn't cold but calculated, you become a puzzle they can't stop trying to solve. Obsession begins in uncertainty. That gap between what they assume and what they know becomes a breeding ground for fixation. You don't win influence by being nice. You win it by being enigmatic. Show interest, then withdraw. Be warm, then go dark. This contrast, this friction, installs a feedback loop in their mind. Why did they stop texting? Did I say something wrong? Are they with someone else? The mind hates loose ends, and if you become one, you become unforgettable. Nietzsche once said, "The secret of reaping the greatest fruitfulness and the greatest enjoyment from life is to live dangerously." To live dangerously, in this case, is to become a mystery wrapped in calm detachment, never quite predictable, never fully reachable. A locked box is only valuable because it's locked. The mystery gives it weight. You must become that box, not cold, not hostile, but closed. Let them wonder what you're thinking. Let them overanalyze your silences. Let them feel drawn to fill in your blanks. When your energy isn't guaranteed, your attention becomes premium. And in a world flooded with oversharing and emotional desperation, scarcity becomes luxury. Attention that must be earned is attention that's respected. But here's the paradox. Distance breeds desire, but too much distance breeds disinterest. That's where the art lies. Tactical friction. You must dance on the edge of availability and withdrawal. Show glimpses of yourself, then retreat. Answer, then go quiet. Be close enough to stir interest, but distant enough to keep them guessing. This tension creates emotional vertigo. And once they're hooked, they won't just want your presence, they'll crave your unpredictability. Obsession is not built on consistency, it's built on confusion. The sense that they're almost there, but not quite. That they almost figured you out, but never fully. That tension is the trap. But it only works if you stay poised, if your detachment isn't fake but real, if your silence doesn't beg but haunts. But remember, too much space and the thread snaps. So how do you stretch it? Just enough? How do you walk the razor's edge without falling into coldness or indifference? You need something deeper, a rhythm of presence that stings and soothes all at once. 5. Master the push-pull power pattern. Power doesn't live in distance, it lives in rhythm. Too much presence and you become expected. Too much absence and you become forgotten. The real weapon is tension, emotional tension, psychological friction. You pull them close, then push away. You offer connection, then retreat into silence. This is the push-pull power pattern, and Machiavellian influence thrives in it. Most people try to be consistent because they're afraid of losing interest. But consistency is only safe. It's never intoxicating. Intoxication begins when the mind doesn't know what comes next. That unpredictability triggers obsession, not because of who you are, but because of how you move. One message, then silence, a glance, then distance. The brain is wired to chase unpredictable rewards. It's the foundation of addiction. It's what makes slot machines irresistible. You must become that variable reward, offering just enough to hook them, then vanishing just long enough to make them question their grip on you. And the moment they start asking questions, you've entered their psychology. They're no longer evaluating your worth. They're trying to regain your attention. And that shift? That's power. Wade Nobles said it best. Power is the ability to define reality and have others respond to your definition as if it were their own. You define the rhythm. They adapt. Reward unpredictably. Withdraw strategically. Show them enough of your presence that they feel chosen, then enough of your absence that they feel uncertain. This is not manipulation. It's precision. You're not playing with feelings. You're sculpting gravity. You become the emotional center of the room not by being loud, but by being missed. Let them taste your energy. Then question everything about it. Why did they stop talking? Are they angry? Are they done? The moment your absence requires interpretation, you've already won the psychological war. But this isn't a one-way game. In time, they may start copying you. They may learn to pull back, to create silence of their own. That's the counterattack. The moment they mirror your rhythm, hoping to regain their own leverage. So what then? What if they start playing the same game? The answer is simple. You stay ahead. You remain the architect of uncertainty. You don't react to their silence. You redefine it. You don't chase when they withdraw. You disappear further. And in doing so, you don't just play the game. You become the rulebook. Power isn't dominance. It's emotional control. The ability to make someone feel everything without showing them anything. But the real question isn't how long you can play this pattern. The question is, how long can they last without breaking formation? Because the one who breaks first loses everything. 6. Never mirror desperation. Desperation is loud. It leaks through every word, every double text, every attempt to fix the silence. And the moment you respond emotionally to someone ignoring you, you've confirmed what they wanted to believe, that they are above you, that their absence is your collapse. But here's the truth Machiavelli understood. Power is not taken. It's surrendered. Not with violence, but with reaction. When you chase, you don't just move toward them. You move beneath them. You validate their control. You mirror the very thing they use to destabilize you. And the mirror becomes your downfall. When someone withholds their attention, it is a trap wrapped in silence. They are not simply gone. They are watching, waiting, not to see your love, but to see your weakness. They want your confusion, your panic, your proof that their distance has you undone. But power doesn't respond. Power observes. It stands still, not because it doesn't feel, but because it refuses to be puppeted. Jung once said, "Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakens." When you stop obsessing over their silence and start studying your own reaction to it, You begin to awaken from the trance they created. Self-restraint is the rarest form of power. It's not apathy, it's emotional sovereignty. When you want to reach out the most, when you want to defend yourself, explain yourself, or beg for clarity, don't. Let them wonder. Let them project. Let them sit in their own silence and realize they no longer hold the strings. Because when you stop reacting, you break the illusion that they matter more than you do. You shift from being the seeker to being the standard. And they feel that shift, even in the void. Stillness is terrifying to manipulators. Because when you don't mirror their games, their control mechanisms short-circuit. They want chaos. You give them calm. They want evidence of your unraveling. You give them elegance. And when they reach back, if they do, you'll know it wasn't out of superiority but confusion. They'll ask themselves, why didn't they break? And that question will haunt them longer than any message you could have sent. But stillness isn't easy, especially when your emotions are spiraling, when your mind is writing 1,000 scripts for what they're thinking. So how do you maintain restraint when every part of you wants to act? That's where the deeper war begins. The one not between you and them, but between your higher self and your craving for validation. The only question left is, which voice will you obey? 7. Channel rejection into power. Rejection is a wound, not to the body, but to the ego. When someone ignores you, it doesn't just sting. It dismantles the image you had of yourself in their eyes. That illusion of being needed, valued, safe, gone in a flash of silence. And in that vacuum, the ego screams for revenge. It wants to prove its worth, to demand acknowledgement, to fight back and force the other to feel the pain they inflicted. But that's where most fall. They react. And reaction, in the Machiavellian sense, is submission. True power is forged in the fire of rejection, not by retaliating, but by refining. Every silence they throw at you is a weight. Most collapse under it, but the few, the rare few, use it to build muscle, emotional resilience, inner stillness, precision. Seneca once said, "He who learns to suffer, suffers less." Rejection, then, becomes a training ground, not for vengeance, but for transformation. Because when you stop chasing explanations, stop needing closure, and start turning pain into fuel, you begin to mutate. You become someone who doesn't beg for understanding, but becomes unexplainable. They didn't reject you. They revealed you to yourself. You think you want closure. What you really need is evolution. Because if someone can destabilize your mind by ignoring you, they were never the enemy. Your fragility was. That's the target. Not them. Not their silence. Not their ego games. The real war is internal. And that war only ends when your validation no longer lives in their gaze. You don't become powerful by healing the wound. You become powerful by integrating it. Let rejection hollow you out, then build something sharper in the empty space. Don't close the door. Burn the building. Don't wait for them to give you a final word, a final message, a final signal that says, "Now you may move on." Move anyway. Move like their silence gave birth to a new standard, like their absence rewired your value system. Let their dismissal echo, not in pain, but in transformation. And when you return to the world, return with edges, with poise, with an aura they can no longer decipher. They won't recognize you, and that is the point. They don't owe you a thing, not a reply, not an apology, not a reason. Because when you stop waiting, you stop bleeding. And that's where power returns. Not when they speak again, but when their silence becomes irrelevant. But transformation demands more than silence. It demands one final act, one decision that turns pain into purpose and closes the loop without them. Are you ready to make it? 8. Disappear with precision, then reappear with power. Disappearing isn't weakness, it's strategy. Most vanish out of pain, but you vanish with precision. You don't retreat. You recalibrate. You pull your energy from the surface and bury it deep into the forge. Because if they ignored you, underestimated you, overlooked you, let them. That ignorance becomes your invitation to evolve where they can't see. While they assume you're broken, you're sharpening. While they forget you, you're building something unforgettable. Machiavelli would call this the art of absence, not to be unseen, but to return changed. Not louder, but heavier. A presence they feel before you even speak. Disappearance is only power when it's paired with transformation. You don't just go silent, you go surgical. You remove distractions, you kill weaknesses, you isolate every part of you that once craved their attention and burn it clean. In the dark, without applause, you master your emotions, your body, your craft. You go where they cannot follow, into solitude, into fire. And when you return, it's not to say, "Look at me." It's to say, "You'll never overlook me again." You're not back for validation. You're back as a different species. Machiavelli understood that power doesn't announce itself. It moves through silence, through restraint, through presence. A lion does not concern himself with the opinion of sheep. You don't need to prove anything. You become something undeniable. Let your absence breed curiosity. Let your stillness plant questions. Let your silence sting. Then let your return feel like thunder. Power isn't about being remembered. It's about being impossible to forget. You must become like a ghost that learned to bleed, and then came back immortal. You died in their memory, and in that death, you built a self they can no longer touch. When they see you again, they won't see the version they ignored. They'll see a presence that exposes their own lack. You are not returning to be liked. You are returning as a standard. The absence taught you detachment. The silence taught you discipline. Now, you carry both like armor. The greatest revenge is not success. It's transformation that renders their validation meaningless. They no longer hold the key because you built a door that doesn't open to them anymore. You walk past them, not to impress, but because you outgrew the game entirely. And the echo of your evolution? That haunts them far more than your attention ever could. So now ask yourself, do you want them to notice you or never forget you again? The difference is in how you disappear and who you choose to be when you return. You were never powerless. You were just unaware of how much power you gave away through reaction, desperation, and the illusion of control. Machiavelli taught that the strong don't beg to be seen. They engineer invisibility into power. If they ignore you, don't chase, don't cry, don't even respond. Become the absence they can't forget. Detach, refine, return, unrecognizable. Because the moment you learn to withhold your energy like a sword, they'll feel your presence in your silence. They'll search for what they once ignored. Your silence will teach them what your presence never could. If you felt this, if something shifted inside you, subscribe to Mindrift. This is where power is rebuilt. This is where you rise, with eyes open,